When you played Minecraft for the first time, there's a good chance that you felt unsettled wandering the various caves or exploring each dimension. The reason for this unsettled feeling is how everything seems so mysterious, unknown, and unexpected. As you played the game more and more, you soon understand how the game works, and usually nothing will catch you off guard because of this. You know in what situations certain mobs spawn and how to deal with them. You know how certain blocks work, and you know the tricks to make your experience easier. Soon enough, this fear of the unknown fades away, and you are left with understanding. If you are familiar with the newest versions of Minecraft, you will notice just how crazy powerful the player can become. You start with absolutely nothing, but soon enough will have enough crazy powerful gear, tools, and resources to be an absolute tank. Mobs that used to be unsettling are now pixel punching bags. At this point, the player has no challenges that will stand in their way. Maybe no other opponent apart from the Warden. Minecraft has come a long way since then, and many years ago, I would argue that Minecraft had essentially a more spooky tone. Now, don't get me wrong, new players will certainly have a lot of spooky adrenaline-filled moments if they start the game today. But there are several instances in which the older versions of Minecraft felt eerie that current versions do not have. And these instances weren't ever meant to give this tone, which I will explain a bit why later. Whenever I try out older versions, specifically Alpha, something just does not feel right. After making a world and taking a glance after the chunks have loaded in, you will realize that it's very quiet. Not many animals can be found scattered around the world, leaving it very eerie, like something dangerous is around at all times. In addition, the world looks barren of anything. It is going to be that way compared to today's overhauled world generation, but it still does a good job of portraying the world as large and expansive. This is because of the large mountains, various biomes, valleys, and grasslands that we can witness throughout our journeys. But without much variety of flowers and vegetation, it just feels empty to the sense of unsettling. In the early 2020s, the online world would share pictures of spaces and areas that are unnerving for a very unique reason. These are labeled as liminal spaces, which are empty or abandoned places that look familiar, but uncomfortably strange because they are without anyone in them. This can cause feelings of sadness and nostalgia, or be unsettling. Older Minecraft just about fits this sensation very well. The environments feel less alive and more empty, but can give players a deep familiar sense of nostalgia, even if that nostalgia is from a time years after Minecraft Alpha was released. Perhaps the most uncanny place is not the lands in the game, but the oceans that are right beside them. Today, the ocean has a ton of content, mostly because of the 2018 aquatic update. We have ocean monuments, ruins, shipwrecks, reefs, and so on. This added lots of much needed life and purpose into the oceans and made them much more interesting. However, launch your world in a year like 2010 and not a single living creature can be seen in sight, just vast, empty, dark pools of water full of sand and dirt at the very bottom. This giant empty landscape would be perfect to hold many secrets within it. Yes, players can find the occasional dungeon, lava pit, and flying island. But what about something more? Something inhabiting the same world as the player, just out of sight of them. Something supernatural. Well, it would come as no surprise when in the same year as this version here, an unknown individual would create a post on an image board site, 4chan, about an encounter with a strange anomaly. This is the post that the user made. Pretty much this post just describes how the user had seen something off in the distance. The reason why the render distance is so foggy is because their computer was something like this. He described the strange character as a default skin with empty eyes. The figure would disappear as quickly as it first appeared, and as the player kept continuing to progress in that world, strange sightings would occur. 2x2 tunnels would be carved out from rocks, pyramids made of sand in the ocean, and areas of trees without any leaves would be found. After searching online to see if anyone else encountered this anomaly, he would receive a message from a Herobrine that would just say, "Stop! Stop!" Eventually, he and some others would track the name to a Swedish gamertag and be revealed to be Notch's dead brother, allegedly. This urban legend would become popular from a stream that would be posted in which someone else would be disguised as Herobrine and make an appearance. The stream would confirm that the stream was faked, and the urban legend would turn out not to be true. Notch even confirms he does not have a brother. However, the legend still lives on throughout the years. While it might be disappointing to not have a mysterious entity in the game, I can't help but feel like something is just always out of sight, watching us. When survival mode was in its infancy, certain game mechanics that we use a lot today did not exist. The health bar here is all that players need to pay attention to, apart from the armor rating. When on a difficulty that monsters spawn, it will not regenerate whatsoever. The only way to get health back when getting hurt is to eat food. But there is a problem. Food is harder to come by. The only form of meat that can be eaten is from pigs, and with animals being a bit more scarce, it might take a bit to find some. When the player does, one piece of pork chop is going to take up an entire slot in the inventory, so it is quite limiting compared to today. Yes, crops can be planted and crafted to make bread, but that will take a while, and without bone meal in the game, players are going to have to wait a while. The only other option would be fishing, which was added in Alpha 1.2, and is a good source of food, however has the same problem as the pork chops, being they are not stackable. So if players are ever going on an expedition, they're going to have most of their inventory space crammed with fish and pork chops. All of this makes the player think twice about what their next decision will be and keep them from feeling too comfortable when venturing away from home. Speaking of, the lands will quickly turn from bright to very dark in what feels like a matter of seconds. If the player is not in the general area of their base come sunset, they are certainly going to have to deal with the dangers that lurk at night. The spider, skeleton, zombie, and creeper. They are relatively easy to deal with now, but not the case back then. The player is not able to sprint, cutting out a mechanic which is a much needed help to deal with threats. There are no shields to use as defense either. Skeletons for some reason seem to have a much more accurate aim. Charging in to defeat a skeleton will likely cause the player to lose a significant amount of health. Spiders, zombies, and creepers are not much different from 1.20, but not being able to sprint and having no shields takes the difficulty up a notch. It gets more difficult as we delve deeper. If this is dark, then this
is advanced darkness.
Caves were much darker than they are now, making it extremely difficult to tell where players are going or what's a few blocks ahead of them without a light source. This can make adventures down into the unknown unnerving. Today, you will usually be able to tell when a creeper is approaching the player from a distance. This gives you time to find a way to deal with them. Now compare that cave to this, and the difference is easy to see. It will be hard to see anything at even a small distance, causing sudden surprises. The experience can get pretty tense considering there is not as much to player progression as now. Enchanting, potion making, totems of undying, netherite, elytra, none of these are present in this version. Without them, there is not going to be a feeling of invincibility. Yes, full diamond armor is still powerful, but not as much as you're going to get with fully enchanted netherite with the enchantments of a golden apple. The golden apple can be found in dungeons for the alpha version, but all it does is instantly restore the player's health completely, so it's not as powerful as today's golden apples, which give a much more powerful effect over time. Structures around the world in current versions give out lots of useful loot and tend to be easy to find. In alpha, the only structure to discover are dungeons, which are difficult to find. The lack of structures only further isolates the player. The lack of powerful options causes the player to constantly be more on edge, knowing they are not crazy overpowering over their foes. This encourages users to consider their options and more often think creatively rather than using brute force to solve tough situations. With all of these differences between today and then, Minecraft was not even meant to be as frightening as it was many years ago. Minecraft was early access and lacked a lot of features that we take advantage of now. Since then, a lot of additions and changes happened over the years. The game would add pets, villagers, golems, better armor, more weapons, sprinting, and the list goes on. These listed features have made the world either feel more lived in or have made the level of progression much higher. The world in alpha was empty because it simply was an early Minecraft build, which is pretty obvious. However, as wide as the worlds are, it was lacking many features. This is where I like to think about why Herobrine was made. One anonymous player was on their world, got bored with everything, but saw the potential of creating a story that would cause others to wonder what might be hiding in Minecraft, or for attention. So why was Minecraft more scary? Well, I like to think it comes down to 5 big things. Firstly, the empty and lonely world, which I have mentioned earlier in the video. There is an entire grand-scale world to explore, yet players are still isolated. No villages, wandering traders, or any form of non-hostile life other than the 4 animals, making it feel a lot like the liminal spaces. Secondly, back in 2010, there was not a whole lot of information on the internet about Minecraft. This would cause many to figure out information on their own or by watching a playthrough. This would make players wonder about what was out there in the world that they did not know about. Today, we have just about every piece of information there is to this game somewhere online. From every entity, spawn rate, way to deal with an enemy and mechanic. It can all be found online, causing the what else could there be questions into what if there could be. My third point is the darker caves and nights. These make encounters more unexpected and can cause tension. Fewer mechanics that players can use is my fourth point. No sprint, blocking, flying, repairing, enchanting, and so take the power away from the player. My fifth and last point is that the gear was not as powerful then. Since Alpha, many tough opponents have been added into the game for sure, which would make sense to have another set of armor or more ways to defeat the strong opponent. Places like the Nether have become more of a deadly challenge, the End Dimension can be a bit more challenging too. But don't you feel like when you have amazing gear, a well-protected base, armies of pets to aid you, an endless supply of potions and food, the overworld packs any sort of challenge? Sure, you can dig down to the deep dark and try to fight the Warden, but besides that, I feel like something is still missing. I understand that the overworld is not meant to have that same level of difficulty as the Nether or End, but making the player still feel like they are trying to survive gets lost in the overworld at a certain point into more of a playground with nothing to fear. But maybe that is the point, to have a space where the most that needs to be worried about is if a creeper explodes the beautiful garden that took me 10 minutes to build. In Alpha, I don't think that was the purpose though. The night was an unavoidable occurrence players had to keep in mind. Just a few mobs can be devastating to even those kitted out with diamonds. Players never had an overwhelming advantage over a foe. Yeah, there is a difficulty option, but that isn't the solution. That would make mobs deal more damage and have a higher chance to spawn with armor. Sprinting, blocking, potions, enchanting, and elytra are still in the game, providing a lot of options that make the experience much easier than Alpha and take the fear away from enemies. So, what is the solution? It's difficult to say. I'm not going to pretend to have the solution to this, and I'm not even sure how many others feel this way or if it's just me. I have some rough ideas, but they aren't perfect and they would only fix some of the problems. Maybe introduce some new enemies that would use some of the abilities as the player, or counter them like a mob that sprints or makes players' enchantments against them not effective. Make the player have a rare encounter with some more powerful mobs or a powerful boss when venturing out a certain amount of blocks from spawn, rather than choosing where to fight a boss by constructing it. I'm not sure if that would fit in with the core game of Minecraft though. I just vomited out some ideas that have a lot of flaws to them, but I think you get the general idea. In my opinion, the game still has quite a horror element in it, but not as much as Alpha. The game has added so much and has been improved immensely by giving the player more freedom than ever to do whatever it is they want. Minecraft isn't as scary anymore, and it isn't even entirely the game's fault. The internet was not nearly as big as it was then. The game changed a lot, but that's okay. It was never meant to be as scary as it was back then. It was simply early builds of the game that lacked many features that would help players progress further to give them more to do in a vast world that is entirely theirs to do whatever in. The game has evolved by adding more life into it, ways to progress and explore, and making it harder to get the best gear in the game. These additions have made the game as addicting to play as ever. It has become a living world with more to do, and that is why Minecraft isn't scary anymore. But that's just how I feel. I wonder how you feel about this. Do you agree or disagree? Are there any topics you think I should cover next? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good one.